So the idea for Himera was pretty much came about in my co-founder's head in the first days of the full-scale invasion. So he volunteered to go into the territorial defense forces in Kiev and firsthand had experience with communications that were available, and he got the idea that something better needs to be created.
Welcome to PEP, the Protect Europe podcast, where we interview founders and investors building the technology that protects Europe's values, way of life, and infrastructure. When three guests independently recommend the same person, Misha, founder of Himera, as a PEP guest, I had to have him on the podcast. This episode was super inspirational for me because Misha explains why, even though they are tired and they are hungry, Ukraine and the tech companies that are being built there feel like they're winning. Join us for this conversation. So, Misha, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. You've been highly recommended by everybody else that we've had on as guests, so it's really good to talk to you. So let's explain. What does Himera do? And are you a kind of secret villain? Because it sounds like a secret villain, super villain sort of organization. Like it sounds like something out of Captain America. So introduce yourself.
You'll tell me why, because I think we're quite a cheerful group of people here. But what we do is that we work on, I like to tell it in two ways. Something that we currently, let's say, what is the focus right now is that we're building the most scalable, resilient, autonomous communication solutions for the kind of modern electronic warfare, electronic reconnaissance, contested battlefield. So this means communication system for voice, for data, whatever is the type of data you need to send when somebody is trying to actively jam you or trying to detect you and locate you, where usual commercial solutions don't work. That's where our solutions should perform well, and they are already performing quite well. And we do it through a lot of the kind of technical, features, but also through a lot of procedures and approaches to the actual application. And if
when the normal solutions don't work, they pick up the bat phone, which is a heavily encrypted bat phone, and they call you.
Yeah, in a way. Ideally, they're already using our radios to do that.
Okay, and that's one way of explaining it. What was the other?
It's more on our bigger vision. So the issue right now that we saw on the battlefield is that often when you watch like a movie, you see somebody presses a button, they show you the whole battlefield where you can see every tank, every person, every plane, and then you press this button and it sends information from here to there and so on. It's like full kind of data transmission.
Of course.
Everything on the phone.
That's like Palmer Luckey kind of XR thing.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't work like that right
now.
No.
Hollywood lies.
It's in the process. Like a lot of things are already connected. But the big issue is that obviously when the internet is connected, you have satellite communication or wired connection is good, but when you actually come into the contested area where you have jammers and spoofers and all of that, there is no way right now to pass information to the very end, to the kind of last mile user, or it's a very complicated process. And when you operate in that kind of at that edge of the battlefield, you want to talk to that robot that is near you, and you want to get information from that sensor. And right now, it doesn't perform as advertised because every single piece of equipment will use different type of communication systems. So soldiers will talk through one company is producing radios for soldiers to talk between each other, and another company is producing a comm system that transfers information from sensors into the tablet, and then or whatever is the computer that is used by the carrier. The drones, the UGVs, the UAVs, they will use a different company's communication system for control and for video. So all of those things are semi-interoperable, but not completely. And so our goal as the company, we're trying to combine and allow every soldier, every sensor, every robot, every piece of software to talk to each other in the harshest environments. Right now, that doesn't exist. That's what we're trying.
I love it. I love my phrase for this podcast is it doesn't work as advertised, right? That's the kind of Hollywood lied slash, yeah, that kind of supervision, kind of like bringing everything together. It's a work in progress.
Yes, very much. Side. And we really want to help with that. And we believe we have the understanding to help.
This is a great mission. Okay, so how long have you been doing this bit of the mission?
So 3.5 years. So we started the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine. So the idea for Himera was pretty much came about in my co-founder's head in the first days of the full-scale invasion. So he volunteered to go into the territorial defense forces in Kyiv and firsthand had experience with communications that were available, and he got the idea that something better needs to be created. And so pretty much it took a couple of weeks to formulate and start working on the first prototype, but really it was like summer of 2022 when we are kind of understood it can be something. So it wasn't like from a first day we knew that we got something big. The idea was born very early. In March 2022, they started working on the kind of first prototype, the concepts, and then summer 2022 is when we were like, okay, this can be big. This can be something that actually helps our defense forces and help Ukraine win. So we were like, let's focus on it.
Fantastic. And what were you doing at the time? If he was kind of formulating these ideas, apart from going, oh shit, what were you up to?
In the beginning of full-scale invasion, and before I was a founder and a CEO of another company. I actually only recently this summer left the position of a CEO. It was a long process of handing over all of the tasks and so on. And there's a new CEO in the company called Promin Aerospace. It was in the aerospace industry working on rocket propulsion for small rockets. And basically I was personally looking in the beginning of the full-scale invasion. The first 2 weeks I was volunteering. I was kind of driving in my car, food for hospitals and volunteers and so on, because the logistic just was not there yet. So I was basically working as a driver of a small van. But after that, we were like, I was looking what can I do, how I can be helpful. And I think when my colleague, now co-founder and CTO, came around and said, this is what I'm working on, this seemed like the most obvious choice and a very big and unobvious problem. Like we still a bit not amazed, but it's a very complicated problem. It was also a very obvious one. So right now we don't really understand why we were the only company to really tackle this issue.
Yeah, and again, it was interesting because obviously one of your recommendations to come on the podcast was the guys Oliver and Henry from Wayran. And again, when they talk about battlefield latency, battlefield communication loss, it sounds like a really bad problem to solve. Right. And a problem that basically is stopping an awful lot of progress on that side. But before we go into the actual problem space, Himera, as I said, supervillain name or just something else?
Is it a supervillain? Does it sound like
I think it's a supervillain. It's like Hydra, Himera, tomato, take aspect. But no, does it have a particular meaning?
It kind of comes from like Himera in Greek mythology, like a creature that is not obvious what the creature is, like a mix of everything. So the idea behind what we do is that our communication needs to be hard to detect, hard to understand what it is, who is communicated, what is being communicated about. So that kind of idea from, somebody who even sees the signal using electronic reconnaissance systems shouldn't be able to understand what they're seeing and who is communicating and what type of product they're using to communicate. So that's kind of the idea behind it, but it comes from Greek mythology.
Fantastic. That makes an awful lot of sense on that side. Okay, so now let's focus on tell me about the problem space in a nutshell, and then tell me about, again, what progress you guys have made to solving that.
The problem that exists is that you have two types of products right now in our niche. Something that works and something that you can afford. So something that works is going to be a very advanced solution, and it's going to be affordable for, special operation forces, Navy SEALs, like the most advanced part of the military. And there is a good reason for that, is that specifically if we look across NATO, is that NATO and whole of the world really didn't think until the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine that a war of this size can be fought. We thought that the last time we fought this such a big of a war was Second World War, and kind of never again. Like it's always going to be this very technological, small scale war somewhere overseas, kind of the most advanced units fight. But what we saw is right now we have more than 1 million people on each side, which is, like relative to the size of the First and Second World Wars. So right now, everyone in the world is like, oh shit, all of the products that we have, all the solutions are for this very advanced fighters, which has more money, more money dedicated for them. They have more time and capacity to learn more advanced solutions. But what about the biggest part of our defense forces, which is usually like land forces? And they're like the only solutions that are available to them was when we talk about price point and ability to scale. So ability to deliver the products quickly by manufacturers, ability to integrate and to teach the users quickly enough. All those products don't have the relevant functionality to operate in the harshest environment. So you had this kind of two types of solutions. And so the question was that we put in front of us, can we make a product that is very advanced, works in the harshest environments, does everything that is needed by the modern fighter defending the country, but at a price point and the scalability factor. Scalability, what I mean is that it's quick to produce. It's instead of years, it takes months to produce or even weeks to produce. Its scalability also is ability to teach. So is it an easy to use product? A lot of the products that exist on the market right now, you need months actually to learn how to use it, because it is a powerful solution, but it's so complicated that nobody can learn it quickly. So we were like, can we make it easy to use, easy to integrate, quick to manufacture at big numbers? And also the price point had to be something where even the reserve forces, the territorial defense forces, which are usually the least funded part of the military. But in Ukraine, we saw they were the first ones to take on the fight because they allocated right in the region. So they allocated much closer to where the attack might come from. And they had nothing because they were like, it's the least part of the military. So can we make a product that they can afford and they can learn, but gives them the functionality that is also very well fit for the special operation forces and Navy, so the most advanced part of the military. And this was the problem, and this was actually something we believe we already achieved, and we quite successfully pushing it across multiple customers and users in Ukraine and globally.
So it sounds like the really hard problem of make an amazing thing, make it work really well, make it affordable, manage a supply chain in a war zone at scale. Yeah. So at this point, we would just do the training montage, right? In any Hollywood film where you guys go away, fix it, repeat, break, fix, repeat, break, and then ultimately you scale and you win. Should we just cut to the training montage? Should we just do that? So how did that go?
Mostly having the right team and having a very good and quick feedback loop with the users. So one of the main reasons why those products that that exist in the market are so overcomplicated, it's not that much because the manufacturers wanted to make them their way, is that because when you create the products in theory, in the lab, you don't know what works, what doesn't work. So you have to make the product do everything. And again, I never said in my whole in this whole conversation, right, that any of those products are bad. They usually are not bad. They're just overcomplicated. And they do so many things that almost nobody needs because nobody knew what is needed and what is not needed. And because we are so closely intertwined with our users in Ukrainian battlefield, they go to our office to have a coffee and talk with us about how they used it, or we go into however closely they allow us to come, and we see how they're using it, what works, what doesn't work, and we can iterate, we can remove some things, we can add some things. Through that iteration, we were able to make something that is powerful and does most of the things most of the user actually need, not a lot of that additional things that, some of the users will benefit from it, but most users have no use for it. So we were able to make something that is very optimized. And then, we partially come from the background of making like a consumer electronics products. Like some of our team, their previous experience was in this very scalable, easy to produce consumer electronics. So we took that experience and with that experience built a purpose-built product for defense forces, for special users, for those kind of things. Defense is not the only area we operate in. We also work with medical evacuation, frontiers, disaster response, peace fighter. There is a planet full of different types of users. They all have a lot of the shared needs. And so we were able to take that kind of consumer electronics approach into something that is usually made with a different mindset of a very bespoke, complex problem and a complex product.
And look, this makes perfect sense. And I do remember this whole issue of make something really good, but then almost reduce the features and reduce the features until people scream that you've reduced the features too much. I remember working on a product in the pandemic in India, where this was for basically a browser-based solution for Indian universities who were taking all their classes online. Now, with India, all the numbers in India are insane. It's like normal country, add a few zeros at the end, equals India. And they were trying to get 200,000 classes live with university professors who'd never run an online class before in their lives, right? And they started off with a really big dashboard. Now, here's all your students, how you manage them, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in the pandemic. They're all locked down. And eventually they worked out that 90% of the features never got used. So all they did all the time was basically like, when no one pressed the button in like a week, they just killed the button. And this was software, so it was easier. But effectively, they just got it down to basically it did 7 things really well, and all the teachers, 200,000 people, could use it to run their classes. And obviously, that was millions and millions and millions of university students going through education, but they had to just keep whittling it down and whittling it down to got to a point. Okay, so how many kind of your products, your radios, your systems, how do you count it? Are they out? How many of them are out in the field? How many are you producing? Obviously, nothing confidential, but just give us some indication of numbers.
We have more than 7,000 users, mostly in Ukrainian defense forces. Since last year, we also started, working internationally, but that's relatively a small percentage of our users as of right now. And that includes various products because, apart from just making our primary product right now is the tactical, and it also has a commercial handheld radio, something that goes onto the user and allows them to talk and to pass data for kind of situational awareness systems and so on. But it also includes a lot of the repeaters, accessories, and kind of the entire ecosystem of products around it.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. And at the moment, how has been the difficulty of managing your own supply chain inside Ukraine during this period of time, which is obviously extremely disruptive, total war, etc.? I'm not saying it's easy. It's clearly very, very hard. What have you managed to get, and how much have you managed to have to rely on stuff coming from outside the country?
We've been doing so far quite a good job, I believe, with managing the supply chain. We were quite smart in deciding what kind of suppliers we want to work with, how to build those supply chains. We have, quite good professionals on the team experienced in that. So I cannot say we have any big issues. A couple of small delays here and there, as in hardware sometimes it happens, but without any critical, I would say, mishaps. But in general, I think you just need to be very smart about this in general. It's just a bit more complicated, and you cannot fly in a lot of things. So you just need to plan better. Because very often, you forgot something. Obviously, every product that we have has hundreds of different components, and one component gets late, the entire thing waits, right? So the entire thing gets delayed. And so our approach, and sometimes when you're pretty much in any other country in the world right now, right? Like you can fly in, pay a lot of money, fly it in very quickly, and finish it up. Not available in Ukraine right now, right? Anything gets moved in either by cars or trucks or by trains. You cannot fly into Ukraine. So that just adds that complexity, and you just need to be very good at planning. And because of that, I think this is one of the reasons where we were choosing specifically the component base, where it's has diverse sources of supply, so we're not dependent on something very unique, very bespoke, where if it's not there, we cannot get it. So we had to choose everything that is available in many places around the world. In case this supplier, something happens to them, we'll go to this supplier and we can rotate them in case it's needed.
Okay, look, you're making it sound easier than I'm sure it is, but you guys are really doing a great job on that particular front. And again, what's the story that we're not hearing from Ukraine today? Obviously, dial in the news any day, there's a Ukraine story. What's the story that we're not being told? Is that a good story, a bad story, a different story? I'm just super interested to hear from the founders and investors working in Ukraine today.
Story about what? Like, do you have any? This
No,
is
no, no.
general.
Look, the classic example is in any war zone, there's always information coming out. The question is what's almost not being talked about outside Ukraine? That's something that basically involves you every day, but we'd never get to hear about it because the algorithms or the media never put it in this particular way.
I might repeat myself, or not even myself. I might repeat something with this. But, in 2022, right, Ukraine was mostly asking to give us weapons.
Yep.
Obviously, we didn't get as closely, even close to as many as we needed and would help us a lot. But what happened has happened. But then in 2023, we started to ask more for money to produce the products ourselves.
Yep.
2024, and this year is like, apart from, there are some niches, right? We're still like air defense with rockets. There are still a lot of things that we
Long
don't
range
do.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah, there are certain things we don't yet do, and my guess is give us a couple of years, we'll get there. But more and more, Ukraine is asking to give us money to buy our own solutions because they fit better, they work better in the real world battlefield conditions, and this is not, this partially is because it's obviously better for economy of Ukraine because money is
Yep.
spent here, but this is only a small percentage. We talk with our Ministry of Defense on their first thing is not, they don't have the time right now to worry that much about the economy. They need something that works best at the price point they have. And so far, in the more and more niches, Ukrainian products are becoming much, much more effective than any of the existing and
Yeah.
available imported solutions. And what I see is that as time goes, it starts to allow us to turn the kind of, what's the saying? To turn the tables, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Onto the enemy. There are a lot of niches where right now, because we were able to create our own Ukrainian solution, we're not and provide them in enough quantities to the Ukrainian defense forces. You see a lot of the issues that we had with some of the Russian drones, some of the Russian attacks, and so on. They are kind of becoming irrelevant because we found a very efficient counter solutions to that.
That
And
makes perfect sense.
so it might seem, I don't know actually, right, how it seems from outside,
Look,
but what I can say is that, and what I've heard is that, that there's still news coming through and, oh, Russia is winning and all that. I'm like, it doesn't feel like that. It does. What's
okay.
true is that a lot of people are exhausted. We obviously don't want to fight, but it is not a situation right now where, as time goes, what it feels right now is that Ukraine is right now becoming stronger and Russia is weaker. I don't know if Russia is becoming weaker. I think this is for somebody else to analyze. But what it
Sure.
feels right now from inside of Ukraine is Ukraine is becoming stronger every day. And so, from my perspective, right now we get, and we will be getting more and more support from our international partners. I think solutions like ours, solutions like a lot of our friends, we know dozens and hundreds of companies in Ukraine doing very important solutions, and they're becoming stronger, they're becoming smarter, their solutions becoming more scaled and more adopted among the Ukrainian defense forces, and those solutions are allowing our defense forces to fight this battle much more efficient.
That I think you said that really well. I don't think that's coming through, so it's great to hear. And again, it's a classic example of Ukraine's just on the learning curve, right? Sounds terrible, but you've got the real life customers. They're giving you the feedback. You're on a fast iteration loop, and you're just learning faster. Therefore, some solution out of an American prime, or even somebody who's not on that learning curve, it's never going to compete at this stage, or very quickly it gets overtaken. It's a bit like when you have any conversation, China versus America, and they talk about, we're going to reshore the jobs and we're going to catch up in hardware. You're going, well, wait a sec, China's not in a vacuum here, right? There's a very deeply competitive ecosystem in China who have basically built a lot of learning curves in factory automation. So even if America catches up, you're going to have to go a lot faster than China currently is today, and you're going to have to compound all the learnings that China's already had. It's actually super difficult to catch up, but I love the fact that it feels like, that it's getting stronger. So that's super interesting. And again, I heard a podcast the other day from one of my friends interviewing one of the Google product managers at the moment. And he said everyone's been beating up Google for the last couple of years in terms of losing the AI race. OpenAI, they're kicking their butt, et cetera, et cetera. You've heard it yourself many, many times. He says, in the team today, it feels like we're getting stronger. Every day, we feel like that our models are more efficient, they're better, they're helping us more. It feels internally like we've turned the tide and now the tide's flowing in the other direction. And I think that's really interesting. Okay, Misha, you've been fantastic, but I'm conscious of time. So let's talk about who you admire in this space, right? Because you got shouted out 3 times by people saying they admire you. Who's doing a great job either as a founder or as an investor in this kind of protecting Europe, protecting Ukraine space? Name names, give them a compliment.
How many names do you want?
You can name as many as you like, but at some point you need to jump on your next call.
Okay. I'll talk. Let me see.
Don't talk broadly, talk specifically. Name people, because everybody named you, and that's why you ended up here.
Thank you. So this is somebody you would want to invite, somebody from like defense tech, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see who would be a good person. I think I really enjoy what Eugene Maximenko doing in combat vision.
Okay.
His name is, or Ukrainian version of his name, Evgen Maximenko. I think the software he's working on is a C4IR kind of solution for combat automation. I think what he's working on in the direction is very, very powerful. I think, and we like, we personally work with, let me first be a bit biased.
You can have favorite children, it's fine.
Yeah. So we also work with a company called Quantropic. They're doing post-quantum encryption, and we implement their solution into our products. I very much like James there, and I think he would be an interesting person also to talk with. I think this is one of the things which is a more long-term need. It's not right now the application, but they are one of those companies that are kind of looking for what can be the future issues and how to work with them. So, and post-quantum encryption is a very much relevant solution that in the coming years will become more and more, more and more obvious for us. And somebody else is, let me see. I know. I really like Victoria Yarenchuk from Farsight Vision. I think their approach and their clarity and kind of it's what fun thing, clarity of their vision in general of what they're doing, but also technically what their product gives to the users in Ukraine is clarity, because they're building like 3D models based on videos. So the drone flies over the battlefield, films the area, and they convert it automatically to a 3D model of the battlefield to allow for much better kind of intelligence building and understanding of the contemporary situation on the battlefield. And I think Victoria very much like her approach, and it is very much also, she's a female CEO in the defense industry,
Yep.
so it's I wouldn't say it's easier for her.
No, I think my daughter runs a podcast called Women in Tech. And again, one of the reasons that she does that is because effectively it's not that easy. And the voice of women working in the technical fields, even if they're working there, they never get their voice out enough. So I totally think that would be a great shout out. Okay, Misha, you've been fantastic. The hair has looked good. Okay, that's very important that side. And we'll definitely love to come back to you in like 6 months or so. Find out how many of your devices are out there. Find out how many times the bat phone has rung for you, and seen if Hollywood's vision actually you've brought it to reality. So you've done a great job, and we are massively supportive of yourself and the work that all the founders and investors are doing in Ukraine to basically win this war. You're doing a great job, and there's a lot of people supporting you. So yeah, thanks very much for sparing the time to come on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. To make sure you catch us again, please follow us on your favorite podcasting platform.